your whole body go crack. The baseline move, take it off of the mat. We rock crowds every time we feel boom, boom, back. Yeah, we got it like that. Kick drum, hit your whole body go crack. The baseline move, take it off of the mat.
What's going on, people? It's your boy Jaydee Dyer, and of course the bank holiday is over. Whether it was bank holiday weekend or Memorial weekend, I hope it was a good one for you. But let's get focused back on the NBA because the first round matchups are almost done. But one thing we do know is the Bucks are the first team to qualify for the second round. And just looking at sort of the matchup so far, 7 ties still to be decided at this stage. Man, the playoffs are everything that we wanted it to be, and every team is turning up. So you know my HeatCheck family had to turn up too. So shout out to my guys joining me on the show this week. Our point guard guru and 3-time NBA champion. Shout out to Detroit every time. You know who it is. It's BJ Armstrong. And our hoop genius with the hottest Snapchat show in the business. Yeah, say none other than the Double M, Mooncey. Yo, guys. As you can hear, this weekend has been good. Yeah, it's been a good time to turn up. But I'm excited to be back here with you, King. So how you been?
Well, I know Mo never misses an opportunity to turn up. So you know what? Let's get it going because Mo got to be a lot to be turned up about this week.
Hey, listen, man. The playoffs are here. The pressure's turning up. The players are turning up. So let's get into it, man. I'm ready.
Well, you know we have to catch people up with the latest news first of all, and I think we should definitely acknowledge a great idea that the NBA has completed now with the BAL champions being successfully announced in their inaugural season. So shout out to the Basketball African League because it was fantastic. But we need to turn around and first of all acknowledge the champions this year. Zamalek, coming out of Egypt, won the first season ever. So BJ, how do you react to the splash the BAL made, and also obviously now that it's completed as well in its short tenure?
Well, it's been amazing that the BAL was not only to get started, get up and running, but to complete a season, especially in this environment with COVID and so many things going on around the world right now. So congratulations to Egypt. Congratulations to the basketball league, the Basketball African League there, and the fact that the NBA, along with their partners all around the world on the continent of Africa, were able to accomplish this and pull this off. So congratulations.
Mo, I think about it now, 215 countries, 15 territories, sort of the different languages that were being spoken. It sounds all incredible, but bringing it to a basketball sense, I love the personal touch. You think about the MVP award being named after Hakeem Olajuwon, Defensive Player of the Year being named after, of course, the Kende Mutombo. And I think about everything as its totality. I just loved everything that the BAL stood for. What do you think about its contributions to the NBA so far?
I think it was an amazing success. Speaking to a few of the players who actually went and played for some of the teams, they really enjoyed it. They had a great time. They really want to run another season back already, which just shows what an outstanding success it was. It had some great competitive basketball on display. I know everyone's favorite rapper came and averaged a couple points a night, and that was pretty fun to watch for everyone. But, then the real hoopers got to it and put on a show for the fans, and it was a fantastic little season that they had going. But I think it's a great starting point. I feel like now is the time to really build upon this success, and I look forward to future seasons of the BAL and the continued growth of basketball in Africa, because there is so much talent in Africa. And also, just outside of basketball, it kind of puts a spotlight on and just shows the beauty of the continent and shows the potential for investment, whether it's within sport, infrastructure, what else. Otherwise, just showcases it for the rest of the world who maybe sometimes may have misconceptions about certain parts of the world. And I just feel like it's great to see how amazing the land of Africa truly is.
We just know that some of the African players that's playing in the NBA right now, the Pascal Siakams, Joel Embiids, and many more, will be proud of the developments that's happening right now in Africa. But gents, let's switch to some sadder news, because former Utah Jazz great and 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, Mark Eaton, passed away late last week. It's sad always to lose people, but at 64, it always does feel like a little bit more sad because he probably had so much life still to live. And the Utah Jazz actually made a great statement in honor of the passing of Mark Eaton. We are heartbroken by the passing of the Utah Jazz legend, Mark Eaton. Our thoughts with his family, and we all mourn the loss of a great man, mentor, athlete, and staple of the community. BJ, it's always sad anytime we lose anybody that's part of the NBA community, especially just speaking to a couple of people around the league about that actually had a chance to interact with Mark. We speak about him as such a gentleman, both on and off the court. Just your thoughts on his passing.
Yeah, the untimely death of Mark Eaton. So my condolences to the family, to the Eaton family, to the Utah Jazz family. And when I think of Mark, and I had a opportunity to know Mark for many years, when you say the definition of a gentle giant, Mark Eaton always comes to mind. I've never been in his presence when he didn't have something positive to say. He was just truly a gentleman, and, he will be dearly missed. And it was just so sad to hear the passing of him. I know he was very active within the community there in Utah. I know he was active with bicycling and riding horses, and he was just so kind. He always had a kind word to say, always very positive. He was a motivational speaker. So, again, I'll be thinking of you, and our prayers will be with the Eaton family during this time.
Mo, 7'4", and as BJ just alluded to him there, such a gentle giant. He really was a mountain amongst some of the biggest men in the world. But you think about his averages in terms of that season where he's averaged 5.6 in terms of blocks across the entire season. That's still the highest in the NBA. That legacy is cemented forever. How do you reflect back on Mark's impact on the game?
BJ's completely right about, what kind of an amazing person he was and a gentle giant. But on the court, if he was in the pain, you didn't want to go there. You just said it, Jaydee. The numbers speak for themselves. But, when players saw Mark Eaton in the paint, if you're a young guy and you didn't see him, go do your research. I always say to you guys, go do your research, study the history of the game, because you see the development of the game, and we're actually seeing the impact of Mark Eaton right now because he actually mentors Rudy Gobert, who plays for the Utah Jazz. And obviously, we all make the jokes about Utah Jazz or whatever, but he is a big part of the development of Rudy Gobert's game, and what's made him such an elite shot blocker is having a mentor of the stature of Mark Eaton there to go to for advice, to learn how to improve his skill set. So, it's all about continuing his legacy now. And I think Rudy's really taken this to heart, and he's really going to try and step up after this and try and honor the memory of his mentor, because, Mark Eaton, as great of a person as he was also doing great things to help young players and players in the league currently improve their games and pass on his knowledge and his expertise to help the game grow and evolve.
11 years of playing with the Jazz, only played solely with the Jazz, drafted back in 82, and they've already retired the famous 53 numbers in the rafters. So as I said already, 64, gone way too soon. So make you always rest in power, Mark, man. Thank you so much for what you've given to the game. But lastly, I do want to touch on some other things that's happening right now in the league and some things that's kind of impacting the NBA regularly. But I know we're all allowed out now, and it's a little bit exciting, right? You can see the fans that are giving it in terms of the home games, especially New York, Boston, Utah. But it comes with those that obviously do cross the line as well. And as we've seen, repercussions of that, fans were also arrested in Boston, Utah, Philly, and New York after their individual respective incidents with players more than anything else. BJ, I'm a little bit concerned because I know fans are allowed back in arenas and we should be happy because things are getting close to normality. But at the same time, these incidents are too close together, and it does seem like maybe people are taking it a bit too far.
Yeah, it really does, Jaydee. And all of the things that have transpired, especially here in the first round of the playoffs, the fans are back in the building for better or for worse. And you see the best part of this situation with the fans back in the building. You see the excitement, you can see the energy, you can see the relationship between the fans and the players and the team that they're cheering for. But then again, what we're discussing here right now, we can see the worst part of sports. And my question is, where is this going? What's going to be the end game here? Because the way it appears right now, it's not going to be a good look if it continues down this path. So for everyone involved, the fans, the players, look, this is a very intimate setting, right? The fans are right there. They're close to the players, and that's great. But at the same time, let's be respectful of one another's space. But more importantly, I think cheering and how you want to cheer for your team, let's do it in a very respectful manner, because you know what? I don't like the way and the direction that this is headed at this current time.
You know what, Mo, you're the king, and you always say the same thing of keeping the same energy, whether it's in a timeline or in person. So I know that, looking at some of those fan incidents, that would have made you very uncomfortable this coming past week just gone. You think about the spitting on Trae Young, the throwing of bottles on Kyrie, racial slurs in Utah, pouring of popcorn on Russell Westbrook. There's hackling, there's getting involved in the game, there's giving support to your team, and then there's taking things too far. And what you've seen this week, do you feel like things have gone too far?
Things have gone way too far. Things have gone way too far. As you said before, JD, I'm the CEO of Keep Your Same Energy, and I can tell you this for a fact. None of these fans would keep that same energy if they were face-to-face with any of these players. Because let's be real. Let's be very real for a second. You see a 6'4" NBA player in person, you ain't throwing anything at them. You ain't spitting at them. You're asking them for a picture. So just because you're sat in the stands and you think you're protected and you're removed from the situation because there's, I don't know, maybe a security guard in front of you or something, you think you can get away with doing what you want. I hope that these guys, I'm really glad that the fan in Boston has been arrested and his name is out there for the public now so that there's repercussions within his, whether it's professional life, whether it's his personal life, because people need to know that athletes are real people. They're not just there for your entertainment. These are human beings. And if you saw them in person out and about in your everyday life, you would not treat them that way. So what makes you think that you have the right, just because you're sitting in the crowd at a sports game, to say disgusting things, to behave in a disgusting manner? Because I'm going to be real, bro. Like, none of these people who do these things, they're all cowards. They're all cowards, because throwing things at someone is one of the most cowardly things you could do. I just don't respect it in the slightest. If you're a fan and you pay money to watch the game, go to the game, sit in your seat, and cheer for your team. And if you want, you can even boo the other team. And you can even make a funny chant like, they were saying Trae Young's going bold or whatever the Knicks fans were saying. I get it. That's funny. That's trash talk, right? But you don't need to go too far. Why you got to spit at people? Why you got to throw things? Do you have no manners? Who raised you? Like, what's really going on here? We've been in the house locked up for a whole year in a pandemic, and everyone's forgotten how to behave. And, if fans aren't careful, what are the solutions here? Going back to having no fans? Or do you want them to be the clear plastic going around the whole arena like in hockey? Like, what's the solution going to be? You've got the privilege of attending an NBA playoff game. Use that privilege and enjoy it and be respectful and respect the game, respect the players, and just do better. I just think it's pathetic. All these fans cowardly throwing stuff. I think it's pathetic. I don't ever want to see that.
I just think as NBA fans, I think really and truly there should be a recognition for the level of intimacy in terms of how close it is from the fans to the players. There isn't any other sport that you get that level of intimacy. So don't do it to yourselves and take that away, because that will be the next step in terms of that action, that level of intimacy. And I say it again, being taken away from you because, as Mo said, you don't know how to behave yourselves. But we do have some other issues that we need to focus on and address. So you know what time it is. We need to jump into hot or not. You know what I like about these playoffs? Every week, there seems to be a different story, different narrative. Everyone's focused on different teams. Is it LeBron's injuries? Is it the Nets? Is it Philly? And I feel like all of those teams deserve recognition. But there's one team that I feel like is flying underneath the radar. And this season, they've shown to me already the demonstration of growth in the postseason, playoff readiness, and genuine contenders. And gentlemen, I am talking about the Milwaukee Bucks. Because what Milwaukee did in their sweep of Miami in this postseason was the equivalent of whatever they did in tearing through the regular season for the last 2 seasons. The value and the manner of the win, it shows the growth. And I feel, as you can see below, the Bucks have made a big statement to the rest of their contenders. BJ, let me hear what you have to say. See, I didn't even know I wanted to go to first because I could hear you both laughing in my ear. And I was thinking to myself, who do I test first here? All right, let's go. Let's go, BJ.
Well, I'll say this. I'll say this. The roster transformation that the Bucks have made is really paying dividends, especially in the first round. They've stayed the course. They've stayed, especially after last year's disappointment in the playoffs. And now they've gotten more experience. Certainly they're tougher. And they are a bigger team than they were a year ago. And you can see right now that they are playing with the focus. And I think they understand what's at task here. And in particular, 2 players. The addition of Drew Holiday has been terrific for them. Why? Because it gives them another ball handler, another initiator, and another player that can play off the dribble. He was terrific there in the first round matchup versus the Miami Heat. Not only on the offensive end, but defensively, he can guard those other small guards. He can switch onto Jimmy Butler. And then you want to put a bigger body on another offensive player, PJ Tucker. He can play inside, outside. So I think those additions, along with Bobby Porters and such, they're bigger. They have more experience, but most importantly, they're a tougher group, a tougher team. And really, they look terrific in the first round. But we're expecting this team to get to the NBA Finals. So there's a lot of basketball to be played, but give them credit for handling their business. They were very businesslike on their trip down to Miami. And JD, I know you like Miami a little behind Atlanta. It's not Atlanta, but it's Miami. But give the Bucks credit. They went down south and they handled their business.
No distractions down in the MIA. They went to the 305 and handled their business. But Mo, I'm looking at it, after being bounced by Toronto and Miami respectively in those previous seasons, this is massive mentally. We both have sat here and given legitimate questions in our Sunday shows about Mike Budenholzer and his ability to react, to adjust. Seeing a sweep of the Miami Heat this year, do you not feel like that's made a huge statement?
You know, JD, I call it like I see it. So right now, I do have to give some credit to Coach Mike Budenholzer, who did a fantastic job steering the ship for the Milwaukee Bucks through this first round. But before I talk about Mike Budenholzer, I want to say huge respect to Giannis Antetokounmpo, because after last year's crumbling in the playoffs from the Milwaukee Bucks, he could have left. Every team in the league wanted to sign him. He could have gone to Toronto. He could have gone to Golden State. He could have gone to wherever he wanted. But instead, he re-signed with the Milwaukee Bucks, and he said, nah, listen, let's run it back. And furthermore, the Milwaukee Bucks, you know, they could have tanked the final game of the season to avoid seeing Miami in the first round, but they didn't do that. They said, nah, let's run it back. So first of all, just from the mentality of that, I respect it a lot. And then talking about tactically from Mike Budenholzer, he wasn't afraid throughout the regular season this year to experiment with, you know, different schemes on defense and on offense. He's made some changes and he played around with a few different things, sacrificing a little bit of the regular season record, but I feel like he realized no one cares about the regular season record if you can't win in the playoffs. So, you know, just looking defensively or looking at what they did this series against the Miami Heat, they took Jimmy Butler from averaging 23.4 points a game in the bubble last year to averaging under 15 points per game against them in this series. Bam Adebayo similarly went from averaging 17 to only 15. They did a great job locking down on defense. As BJ said earlier, Drew Holiday was a huge factor. Giannis, who, even though he's not in the conversation of Defensive Player of the Year this year, is, if we're going to keep 100, the best defender in the whole of the NBA. And then, of course, you had guys like Brook Lopez, who was making his presence felt in the paint every time they got to the bucket. And then I'm looking at the offensive end. Giannis has finally figured out how to overcome the wall that team set up for them. He's doing a great job of when teams like the Miami Heat set up that wall, of playing patiently and looking for his teammates and making the correct passes out of that, because he has the ability, like LeBron James does, is to suck in the entire defense in terms of making them all come into the paint, surround him, try to build that wall. Now he's got open shooters. But the difference here was quite a subtle difference. Instead of having 4 shooters on the perimeter, the Bucks are now placing one guy in the dunk spot, so just down there in the paint by the bucket. So there's only 3 shooters available on the perimeter, but Giannis is still able to find them.
This is what I like. No, this is what I like. This is what I like, because you're being honest, and you're leading me on to my next question. Yeah, my next question is because your potential matchup, and I'm seeing it right now, and I'm asking you, if the Boston Celtics can do the impossible, or if we took it from a sort of a favoritism perspective and the Nets do progress, how does that matchup look for you?
I really don't see the Boston Celtics progressing past the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, no Jaylen Brown, Emma Walker's injured, Rob Williams is injured. I know, I respect it. And what I will say is this is a conversation for another day, but if Jaylen Brown was healthy, this series would look very different. But anyway, let's assume that they're facing the Brooklyn Nets in the next round. That is going to be, I said it in the group chat before, that's going to be an all-time classic playoff series. That is going to be, in my opinion, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo going head-to-head. You've got Chris Middleton, who's really stepped up this year, going up against the likes of James Harden. I'm just sad that Dante DiVincenzo is not going to be in, because I feel like he would have been useful in trying to slow down Kyrie Irving a little bit. I think Bryn Forbes and Pat Connaughton are really going to have to try and step up their defense now. But I think that series is going to be one for the ages. I can't call it. Like, I would say the Brooklyn Nets are going to go through, and in my bracket, I had the Brooklyn Nets going through. But after seeing how great the Bucks were in that first round, it's tough. But having said that, it's tough to figure out right now. Were the Bucks really that good? Or is Heat culture just a lie? That's the question I got for you, JD.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. First of all, you know you can't throw any shade on the 305 right here on this show. You know you're not allowed to do that. Not with Pat Riley, the vampire, and all the rest of it. You know you're not allowed to do that. That's not fair.
I'm just saying. I heard we're not trading Tyler Herro for James Harden because he's going to be a superstar.
There we go.
But here we are. That's what I'm just asking the questions. I'm not saying anything. I don't want Udonis Hassan to throw a chair. I'm just asking the questions. I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking the question. You feel me?
BJ, you've been in this position a number of times in terms of sitting comfortably in the second round, waiting for an opponent to come and reach you. I want to know, do you have the perspective of saying we're waiting for them, or do you kind of switch off for a couple of days while they sort out their own respective series? Or do you kind of stay locked in and just say, I'm going to kind of prepare myself for who you're expecting to come out?
Well, you know, the Milwaukee Bucks, you know, I like their professionalism, what they were able to accomplish and how they played. More importantly, they just took care of their business because you never know what could happen. Unfortunately, the team sustained a significant injury. Okay, so when you go out there and you play, and you always understand that there may be a player and injuries are a part of the game. So I think the Milwaukee Bucks right now are just taking it one day at a time, and they know. I think that was what PJ Tucker and the addition of PJ Tucker was really all about. They knew then, they know now that they needed more than one player because Giannis can match up with Kevin Durant, but they needed another player that can match up with either James Harden or Kevin Durant. Okay, you're not going to be able to stop those guys, but you at least have to be able to match up. So if the Brooklyn Nets do decide to go small, which they probably will do, I think the addition of PJ Tucker and Bobby Portis will become critical to, you know, both of these teams looking to advance because they have two special players. I mean, there's a lot of special players out there on the floor, but in particular, Kevin Durant, I mean, he's just head and shoulders, I think, offensively above most players in the NBA of what he's been able to do. And then you have Giannis on the other side, who's just a very unique player in his own right on the offensive end, and he supposedly can't shoot threes. So I think they're going to both provide. You know, it's going to be awful for the opposing team's defense trying to figure out how to guard these guys. But more importantly, you have James Harden, you have Kyrie Irving, you have Chris Middleton, you have Drew Holiday. You talk about you got stars, you got role players, you know. So I think it's going to be a terrific, terrific series. But first, you know, the Brooklyn Nets have to handle the Boston Celtics because Mo's man, Jason Tatum, you know, he's cooking right now. He's cooking in the kitchen. And, you know, he's putting up big time numbers minus, you know, his guy, you know, Jaylen Brown. So give him credit. Give the Celtics credit for coming out there being competitive. But they're just, you know, they're a little undermanned at the moment.
Again, the Nets have to handle business because, as BJ just said, Jason Tatum right now, he is cooking. He's a pleasure to watch every single night. But let's switch conferences now because we all know when last week we were sitting here, we were talking about the Clippers and they arrived in Dallas 2 games down in their series. Their entire future was clouded with uncertainty. There's no two ways about it. Even me who sat here and I sat on this same seat and said to you, the Clippers are going to the finals. I thought when they left their home court advantage in LA, I thought it was over. But we're game 4 now. The momentum is restored, yeah? Energy is switched up. And you can see there's one fundamental behind all of this. And I'm calling his name right now. Kawhi Leonard. He dropped 36 in game 3. Yeah, he made 11 of 15, 29, and 10 in game 4. And right now, he's simply too strong for anybody in Dallas to stop him. He's averaging 36 points in this series. Ladies and gentlemen, Kawhi Leonard has entered the fray in this postseason. And I'm stating it right now. He is the best player right now in this playoffs. Mo?
Who's the best player in the playoffs?
I needed to hear the tension. I need to hear the tension build first. I need to hear the tension build first. I can hear you giggling. Yeah. So tell me straight. I'm watching Kawhi. He did everything that was answered of him. You turned around and told him to bring his team back from 2 games down. He's done that. I'm not saying he's won the series and stuff yet, but he's done everything that he needed to do thus far. All I can do is judge players on what they've given me thus far. And I'm telling you right now, Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the playoffs right now.
Okay. I'm with all due respect to Kawhi Leonard, because I think Kawhi Leonard is fantastic. He's putting up absurd numbers. He's playing great defense. He's really leading this Clippers team. But if you're the best player in the playoffs, right, the best player in the world, why is your team going 2-0 down at home against the Dallas Mavericks, who are essentially just Luka Doncic and spare parts? That's my question, Jaydee. Like, I'm looking over at Kevin Durant, who's averaging 35 and 8 with 56% from the field, 46% from the three, and 91% from the line. I'm looking at, like, they're comfortably going through. Yeah, they dropped one game, but I'm just, with all due respect to Kawhi Leonard, I feel like on the last 2 games, he's looked like the best player, but you can't be the best player in the playoffs when you only look at 2 games out of the 4 that he played so far. So he definitely is in the conversation, but he needs to continue this going forwards. The reason why I can't say he's the best player in the playoffs is because he's not been the difference maker for the Clippers. The difference maker for the Clippers has been Nicholas Batum coming into the starting lineup in place of Ivica Zubac. And I know I don't mean that to discredit what Kawhi Leonard's done on both sides of the ball, because it's been fantastic, but it's been a collective effort to really get this series back on track. It's been some good coaching from Tyronn Lue, some great rotations. It's been great impact from the other guys on the team as well. But we have to factor in, who are these guys playing against? They've got Luka Doncic now, who's got an injured neck and he can't turn and face the left-hand side properly. He can barely throw a correct pass to the left-hand side without being in pain. They've got Kristaps Porzingis, who is essentially a 7'2", $30 million shooting guard, because he just can't post up despite being bigger than everyone he's trying to post up on. And, they've got other guys who are role players, essentially. And with role players, you can't rely on them for consistent performances, especially from behind the arc. So they had hot shooting nights in game 1 and 2, but they've understandably cooled off in games 3 and 4. So essentially, you're basically playing against Luka Doncic. And that's with all due respect to the rest of the Dallas Mavericks team. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, because we do have to say Giannis Antetokounmpo has been chilling in the second round of the playoffs, waiting for everyone to catch up. Kevin Durant is out there putting up absurd numbers. We're about to see LeBron James turn on the on switch, because I feel like he's been coasting so far. So Kawhi's been great, but I just don't feel like losing 2 games at home to Luka Doncic basically by himself is, worthy of being called the best player in the world right now.
Look, all I can judge a team is the adjustments they make. And since they got on that plane and went to Texas, as you said, Ty Lue's made the adjustments. Gone to a small ball lineup. Nicholas Batum comes into the center position. I like that. Everybody can switch defensively, especially on Luka. But Kawhi right now is looking like he can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And BJ, I need to give the man the recognition he deserves. Because as this series has progressed, he has announced himself as the best player in this postseason right now.
Well, Jaydee, Kawhi Leonard has made some amazing playoff runs. And let's give him credit where credit is due. His record, what he's done, his resume speaks for itself. He's been an NBA champion multiple times. However, Jaydee, there's a lot of basketball to be played. And when you look at the LA Clippers, okay, the series is 2-2. That's all he's done, okay? When they left LA, it was completely silent out here. Staples Center was silent. I didn't hear Clipper Nation. Mo would have been so proud as CEO of bringing that energy no matter what. Well, the energy was a little different out here after those first 2 games in LA. You didn't hear Clipper Nation at all. But give Kawhi Leonard credit. Give the coaching staff, Tyronn Lue and those guys credit. They bounced back and they went down there to the Lone Star State and got not 1 win, but they got 2 wins, led by Kawhi Leonard. However, saying he's the best player in the playoffs right now, I'm not ready to say that, because Luka Doncic may and continue to be, even with a bad neck, the best player in the series. He has been amazing. The series is tied. I think now it's a 3-game series, and we're going to find out. I don't want to discredit any of these great players that you've seen. You've seen some incredible first-round matchups, right? Jason Tatum has been terrific. Damian Lillard out there in the Northwest has been amazing. Jokic, Joel Embiid, you've seen some incredible performances. And by the way, Giannis has gone about his business quietly up under the radar, eliminated Jimmy Butler, because Jimmy Butler was spectacular last year in the bubble, okay? And Giannis just swept him, all right? So there's been some incredible matchups. I'm not ready to say who's the best player yet in the first round. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Certainly, I'm looking forward to beautiful, great moments. Right now, we got a 3-game series with Luka Doncic on one side and Kawhi Leonard on the other. Something is about to happen that's going to be great. we're going to find out, JD, how good both of these guys really are. Because you know what? Great players need great moments. Well, here we are. And let's bring that smoke. Because Mo says, don't change the energy now. So let's go get it.
No, I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for Mo because I know Mo's got something that's cooking in there. I know Mo's got something that's cooking in there.
Listen,
I'm not gonna interrupt you this time.
I can only call the game as I see it. I can only call the game as I see it, man. I can only call the game as I see it. And just, you know, while we're talking about this, man, I feel bad for Luka Doncic because, all right, cool. Kawhi Leonard is playing great basketball, but look at what he's got around him. He's got an all-star talent in Paul George around him. He's got veterans like Rajon Rondo around him. He's got, you know, hard players like, you know, a Morris alongside him. You know, he's got great pieces on that. I just feel bad looking at this Dallas team where you've got Luka Doncic and then you've got like Maxi Kleber suffering with an injury that he's playing through. You've got Porzingis, who I spoke about earlier, but you've just got to be doing more. You're making $30 million a year. You've got to be providing more, especially when the other team is going small. You have to be really and truly dominating the game like they expected you to do when they signed you to a huge contract. I'm looking for more from him because, you know, otherwise we're looking at guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dorian Finney-Smith, who were essentially in the Dallas offense. They're just going to shoot three-pointers. And now that the Clippers are running them off the three-point line, it's obviously got to change their game plan. But, you know, I'm just excited for in a few years' time when Dallas can make some upgrades around their roster and we see Luka Doncic have a supporting cast as strong as the one that Kawhi Leonard has right now, because that does make the game easier for a superstar. You know, the game for Michael Jordan was made easier when he had great players around him, like the Scottie Pippins, the BJ Armstrongs, and all of those guys around him opens up the floor. The game is tougher when you've just got role players that aren't as good as the other team's role players. So, you know, with all due respect to the Dallas Mavericks, the rest of the guys need to step up because Luka right now, he's struggling with an injury, especially in his neck. When the passes that he makes are such a big part of his game, it's going to be tough for them to turn things around now, especially with all the momentum going towards the Clippers.
Well, I love what BJ said. This is now becoming a 3-game series, and we've got game 5 coming for you here. And I can't wait because Wednesday night, a lot of these questions are about to be answered. And that man right there, I've called him the best player in the playoffs at this moment in time, Kawhi Leonard, and he is handling his business. 3 a.m., Sky Sports Arena, Sky Sports main event, to see how he gets on in game 5. But you know what? I want to stay in the West because, you know, obviously the final hot take every week is done by you, the viewers. So shout out to you guys that tweet in, tune in every week. I appreciate you guys. And I think we, as all lovers of this game, can acknowledge that the West is wide open. Even that being said, sometimes we still got to recognize the credentials that's in there because right now, you still have the defending champions in contention. And naturally, when you have LeBron James on your roster, it does give you a slight advantage. And number 2, of course, when you have the defending champions and have that championship mentality in your locker room, it gives you another advantage. But there's one other variable that we're not really considering. And shout out to our viewer this week, Grizz, who feels the same way. And his hot take for you, Mo, is that if AD can't recover, the Portland Trailblazers will be coming out of the West this year.
Wow. This is an interesting take. I mean, this is an interesting take. Okay, we've got to break it down step by step. So first of all, they got to beat the Denver Nuggets because they're not through to the next round yet, right? We've got to see them take on the soon-to-be MVP Nikola Jokic, close out the series that's currently tied up. And it's not going to be easy. I believe they can do it. I had Portland coming out of the first round. I believe they can do that, okay? But then let's look to the next round. Assuming they can beat Denver, let's look to the next round. You've got either the Phoenix Suns or the LA Lakers. Now, the LA Lakers saying that if Anthony Davis is out, that the Lakers will either lose to the Phoenix Suns or lose to the Portland Trailblazers. Well, I've seen LeBron James do a lot more with a lot less. You know, even if you do take Anthony Davis off this Lakers roster, the roster is more talented than some of the teams he's had in Cleveland that he's taken to the NBA Finals. So let's not count them out off the bat. Now, let's say it doesn't work out because LeBron is still carrying a bit of his injury as well, and the Phoenix Suns go through. Well, the Phoenix Suns aren't exactly an easy team to get past in that second round either. You've got to go up against Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton. Let's take a moment to applaud this young man for the way that he's embraced his role in his first playoff run. He's been nothing short of dominant down low in the paint, doing what he does best on the inside. And, you know, the role players, we've got the Mikal Bridges and all of these guys, Jay Crowder, who's struggled a little bit, but, you know, he's got that experience. And So I'm just looking at it like that. Okay, let's assume that they can get through the Phoenix Suns or the Lakers, whoever gets through. Then you got to face the LA Clippers. Is that what we're going to assume? I don't know. I just think that the route to the finals
It's hard
for the Trailblazers, as great as I think Damian Lillard is, I think there's only so much he can do. And you're seeing, my question is this. All right, cool. Damian Lillard is going to do what Damian Lillard does. Am I going to rely on CJ McCollum and Norman Powell to do that every night? I know CJ is a great player and he can probably bring that every night. But I don't know, especially when teams have the time to game plan and focus in on, this 7-game series up against Portland Trailblazers. Do they have the depth in the rest of the squad? And do they have that depth? And can they rely on that depth to be reliable every night if teams really focus in on Dame and try and take him out of the series? I don't know. I wouldn't say that I would bet on it in any way, shape, or form, the Portland Trailblazers coming out of the West. But I do know one thing, is that when you've got a guy that can pull up at the half-court logo and score threes whenever he wants, you can never count that team out. So I would be very surprised if they did it, but I would love to see Dame carry that team all the way through.
I mean, BJ, do you see a scenario where I'm looking at Portland going past a Jamal Murray-less Denver Nuggets, and then, of course, then you have, as Mo said, the winner of the Lakers versus the Suns series, so you would either be playing Chris Paul or LeBron James. And then, of course, it doesn't really matter who comes out on the opposite side of the bracket in terms of in the West, because whoever's going to make it to the conference finals is going to be a serious contender. That's a lot of depth you have to get through in Portland. Do you see that happening?
Well, the one thing I'll say about sports is Damian Lillard, a Damian Lillard-led team always gives you hope. And I think that's what makes this such an interesting take. Damian Lillard has the capability to go to 40, 50, 60. Damian Lillard is a very explosive player. Now, do I think the Portland Trailblazers are going to come out of the West? No, I do not. And the reason being is because defensively, this team hasn't been, let's say, one of the elite defensive teams all season. But Damian Lillard is very capable. He's a very capable player. You got to give the Utah Jazz credit. After game one, they've really kind of turned things around. Donovan Mitchell's gotten back in the fold. They're starting to look like the number one seed. They're playing terrific. I know they're shooting the ball well. You have to give them credit. And of course, the elephant in the room, LeBron James and the health of the LA Lakers. And we've seen LeBron James do some incredible things over the years, and certainly you can't count him out. As Mo alluded to, you're saying we've seen him do more with less. However, I think it's going to be very tough for LeBron James. He's coming off an injury himself. I know he's going to try to figure it out. But that was a terrific win in Game 4 by the Phoenix Suns. Make no doubt about it. You can see this team has a little grit. They toughed it out. Chris Paul is just figuring out how to play and perform. So I think there's a lot of talent out there. I think Denver, Mr. Jokic is going to have something to say about this. I think there are a lot of teams out there. I don't think the Portland Trailblazers are the elite team, but certainly with Damian Lillard, when I see Dame do this, and if you got a Game 7 with Dame,
time is,
I'm going to give him his respect, because that young man there shows up in big moments. But I don't think they are the team to beat coming out of the West, regardless of what happens moving forward here as we go throughout the playoffs.
Grizz, all I'm going to say is I'm going to let this tape marinate, because I think you've got some believers, but I don't think they have the confidence as of yet to turn around and say that they believe the Blazers will be coming out of the West. But you might just be ahead of the curve, my friend. And if Dame starts pointing at his watch, as BJ said, we could be in real trouble. Real trouble. But I do want to flip conferences now, because we're about to jump into off the court. And this one, we've been waiting for a while, because Knicks fans, it's time we digest your past, your present, and most importantly, your future. All right, cool. So let's do this. Let's break this down. First things first, I have to state the facts about the present. The Knicks right now are in an incredibly frustrating first-round series against the Hawks, because we expected you all to go through. The best player, Julius Randle, been restricted to 16 points. Let's not even talk about the efficiency. I don't want to upset you as of yet. Let's stay focused. Stay with me, because the hype around the New York's defense hasn't quite made sense in the postseason. But Knicks, this isn't a shot at you, because Mo is about to dive into your past and where you've been. But I need you to acknowledge also where you're going. The foundations are there. You've got Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, the front office, Leon Rose. William Wesley, they're handling their business. They've got the savviness. Everybody's there engaged. But BJ says something on this show, and I need you to really take this in. If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So understand where you've been and understand where you're going. So Mo, break it down to them right now about their past.
The New York Knicks are finally back in the playoffs for the first time since 2013. And yes, it's all very exciting, and understandably the attention is on the here and now, but let's wheel it up and look back at their last campaign. That's right, the Knicks last hit the playoffs back in 2013 off the back of their best regular season in 16 years. And the Knicks fans, they felt that that team might just be poised to hang another championship banner.
I was extremely confident heading into the postseason in 2012-2013. The Knicks had finished with the second best record in the East, winning 54 games. This included a 15-1 run to end the season. Carmelo Anthony was the scoring champion and would be third in MVP voting. J.R. Smith was also the sixth man of the year. The Knicks also had a 3-1 record against the Heat, who had won the Eastern Conference, and it seemed as though they would be destined to meet each other in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, Melo spearheaded a roster of hardened veterans that included Jason Kidd, Amari Stoudemire, Tyson Chandler. In fact, Iman Shumpert was the only player under the age of 27 to even feature for them in the playoffs. This was very much a team built for a good time and not a long time. The first hurdle in the playoffs was the 7th seed Boston Celtics, led by the great legendary Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. The Knicks took the first 3 games, but would squander their chances to get the series wrapped up early and give their aging roster some rest. Boston took an early lead in Game 4 and held off a Knicks comeback. In the 5th game, poor shooting cost the Knicks the chance to win the series in front of the Madison Square Garden faithful. J.R. Smith in particular missed his first 10 shots. That's right, the New York Knicks would eventually wrap up the series in Game 6, but only after nearly blowing a 26-point lead. Fortunately for them, clutch buckets from Melo and JR saw the Knicks through, and the franchise won their first playoff series since the year 2000. In the second round, the Knicks would face the third-seeded Indiana Pacers, a comparatively much younger side under the guide of head coach Frank Vogel.
The matchup with the Pacers in the second round was intriguing. The Pacers had a solid starting 5, which included a young Paul George, George Hill and David West. They were a really good defensive team, and the matchup hinged on whether the Pacers could stop the Knicks' offense, which had been formidable in the regular season, ranking 3rd in the league.
The two sides split the first 2 games at MSG before the Pacers won both games in Indiana to take a 3-1 series lead. Facing elimination, the Knicks rallied to take Game 5, but would eventually lose the series after failing to hold off a comeback in Game 6. The significant highlight of the series was no doubt the fourth quarter block from big man Roy Hibbert on Carmelo Anthony, which stopped the Knicks taking a 4-point advantage in Game 6.
The primary reason the Knicks lost the series versus the Pacers was that the Knicks couldn't make shots. During the regular season, the Knicks offense built around Carmelo Anthony and J.R. Smith had been the 3rd best in the league. The Knicks led the league in threes and made them at the highest percentage. The Knicks shot 37.6 from 3 during the year, which dropped to 35% in the Pacers series. But it was more than that. Carmelo Anthony got his offensively, but he simply didn't get the support from others. Mike Woodson also opted to play small in the series, playing with 2 point guards and Carmelo at the 4, which was no match for Hibbert, West and George. The Knicks ended up being out-rebounded 220 to 272 during the series.
The 2013 postseason delivered the sole series win of Carmelo Anthony's tenure in New York, and what followed was a sharp decline for the franchise. They'd failed to make the playoffs for the next 7 seasons, the longest drought in the Eastern Conference by the start of this current season. But ladies and gentlemen, the New York Knicks are back. They're moving in the right direction with a unit that no doubt has even better days ahead of them. It might finally be time for all you Knicks fans to come back out from behind the sofa.
As Knicks fans, we're optimistic heading into the playoffs. We're not naive to the fact this team perhaps doesn't have the firepower of Philadelphia, Brooklyn or Milwaukee. However, what they lack in firepower, they make up for in grit and determination. The Knicks have an elite defense and a top 5 MVP candidate in Julius Randle, who has been supported admirably by RJ Barrett and Derrick Rose. The Knicks are unlikely to win the chip, but the future is bright. The team has an exciting young group, a plethora of draft picks and cap space, but more importantly, they've got an identity in a front office and coach who have brought a level of accountability to this team, which we haven't had since the playoff run in 2013. We're here.
We are here. Look. Even if it all ends this week in New York in terms of their postseason, with the Hawks now being 3-1 up, I need Knicks fans to breathe and remember what Mo has just taught you about where you've come from to where you are right now. I needed them to really understand that timeline so we can fully jump into this, BJ, because the stage is set. It's ready for a superstar to go into the Garden and make that their home. Can you see that being their future? Can you see someone saying, okay, finally the Knicks are an attractive prospect?
Well, absolutely. Certainly what you've seen this year, the New York Knicks franchise, the energy. I just go back to the game 1 and game 2 of the playoffs. I mean, you talk about an environment that was just incredible, amazing, electric, however you want to describe it. No one can deny this. When you say New York, that's a New York Knicks town. And Julius Randle has thrived in that environment, and it's been phenomenal. The whole country has really embraced the New York Knicks this year. It's been marvelous to watch. It really is. It really has. And it's been great for basketball that playoff basketball is back in New York City. Now, we're talking about New York where the expectations are championship and bust. And if you're going to handle the pressure of what comes with New York, that's another whole conversation. That's a show within itself. But it's been great. And the reason it's been great this year is because of the following. This New York Knicks team have surpassed the expectations of everyone. No one, myself included, had the New York Knicks being the 4th seed in the playoffs this year. And that's why it's been so beautiful to watch. Next year, if this team is in the playoffs and they're 7th and 8th, they're going, oh, trade everybody. Right now we love Julius Randle, but we know this. It can turn very quickly in New York City. Okay. Very, very quickly. And that is the problem with New York. So I think right now I'm going to embrace this team. This team is ahead of schedule. They have a great roster. Their finances are in order. Their books, their whole front office. I know Leon Rose and William Wesley get a lot of credit, but let's not forget the general manager, Scott Perry, who laid this foundation for what they're doing. Tom Thibodeau deserves a lot of credit. The players, Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Derrick Rose, all these guys deserve a lot of credit. So there's enough credit to go around here. But more importantly, where are they going? That's going to be the big question, because they're going to have to commit long-term to someone. Because right now, they don't have anyone on their books long-term. So they are sitting beautifully to make whatever moves, whatever directions they go. But as you know, in New York, it will be analyzed, it will be scrutinized, and my good friend Mo will be right there looking to see where this New York Knicks team is going to go. And if they make one little mistake, Mo's going to get them.
But Mo, they're right, because they're at a crossroads. The culture has been set now. Things have turned 180. You have the fans back engaged. We were texting. We were in the group chat. We saw the Garden, the atmosphere. Even we were sitting there like, could you imagine what it must be like to be in that arena right now? But at this moment, do you go with the superstar approach, or do you continue to build with the approach that has got you this far?
Well, you're looking at this roster. I think you're in a position where you have to extend Julius Randle for everything he's done for this team, because without what Julius Randle did this season, we're talking about not only winning the most improved player, but playing like a top 10, top 5, maybe MVP caliber type player this year. You have to reward him for what he's done and what he's brought to your franchise, and you really have to pay the man. And of course, you've got young guys as well. Let's not forget Mitchell Robinson, who's not featured much at all this year, but he's still young and he's coming off injury. But Emmanuel Quickley has been a really impressive rookie. So, some pieces there to build around. And of course, let's not forget about RJ Barrett, who was, a top lottery pick in the NBA draft. And his friend sitting over in New Orleans. Now, I don't want to talk too early, because there's still a lot of time left on these young guys' deals, and you get more money when you renew it with the same team that drafted you. But let's just say somewhere down the line, RJ's best friend, who currently lives in New Orleans, if they continue to miss the playoffs and the Knicks continue to make the playoffs and look competitive and the Garden stays rocking, it's going to be hard for players to not want to play there.
I like this. And I even like the way that you're turning around and talking about Zion. I see you, bro. You don't need to turn around and hide it. We all heard Zion turn around and say it's his favorite arena to play in. We all heard him say it. And trust me, everybody in New York heard him say it as well. Yeah, but exactly as you both gentlemen said, we have been so impressed by the Knicks this year. But what is the next steps? And we're all going to be sitting there like this. This was our new thing. Ready. Ready to see what the Knicks produce for us. But let me give you a little breakdown of some of the things that's happening this weekend here on Sky Sports as well, because we've got some great basketball action. And I'm going to take you to the W first, because as much as the NBA postseason has been incredible, we have to talk about the WNBA. And I spoke to Elena Del Don a couple of weeks ago, and she was telling me how the Mystics are determined this year to make a statement. A little bit of a slow start, and they'll have their hands full this weekend against the Las Vegas Aces as they come into town. 6 p.m. Sky Sports Arena Saturday. I've got you ready. And of course, you know there's only one place to be. Yeah, when it comes to paint. In the paint, yeah, my guy Mooncey with the hottest show on Snapchat. Yeah, subscribers have been there, views have been there, and of course, you know the takes are there as well. Yeah, appreciate you each and every time, brother. Now, I have some good news for obviously the NBA fans as well, waiting for what's happening with the postseason. We will have a game on Sunday, but as you know, the games are still obviously deliberating and working themselves out now. So stay glued to the Twitter page for the announcement as to what our game will be on Sunday for you in terms of that primetime preview. But gents, I think it's kind of a good thing, the fact that we don't know what our game is as of yet, because it shows how intense the playoffs have been. So if I had to come to both of you, and BJ, I'll come to you first. You have any series that you want to see go 7 games. Which series would you love to see play out in its totality?
Well, you know what? I got one series I want to see Game 7. Can you guys imagine this? Mo and BJ and JD sitting courtside at Madison Square Garden, Game 7.
I'm here. I even have to bring back the 90s dunks. I'm here.
Game 7. Okay. With the New York Knicks, the Atlanta Hawks. Can you imagine the electricity that would be in that building? And we would be there, guys. The heat check with that. I can't think of anything better than that right now. You know what? Talking a little basketball, we got Trae Young. We got Julius Randle. We got Spike Lee. We got our own superstar, Mooncey here, you know, and, you know, his sidekicks, JD and BJ. We just going to be along for the ride because Mo going to bring the smoke that game. Mo going to bring the smoke. I would love to see that. If there was a Game 7, that would be the one I want to see just because the atmosphere would be electric, guys.
Mo, 7-game series. Which 2 teams you want to see competing?
Come on, JD, you know I've only got one answer for this. If I could wave a magic wand and create a Game 7, I'm rocking with my Celtics. Think about the mentality of the Brooklyn Nets for the team they were supposed to sweep. If it gets to a Game 7, Jason Tatum, you talk about Kawhi Leonard being the best player in the playoffs. We're going to have some serious conversation about Jason Tatum. Now, I'm not saying that's realistic. If we're going to be realistic about it, either I want to see LeBron and CP3 go up together in a Game 7, but the one that I really want to see is Luka Magic versus the Claw. In a Game 7, we know about Luka's game winner from last year's playoffs. We know about what the Clippers are doing with all the momentum now. That Game 7, if it's close, goes down to the final possessions and Luka Doncic has the ball in his hands. I think the whole world will be holding their breath to see what happens with that, because think about the implications of what could happen if that went to a Game 7 and the Mavericks won. What happens with Kawhi Leonard, whose contract expires the moment that buzzer goes? Who knows what dominoes could fall after that game? So that's the one I want to see Game 7 of.
So many questions, so many answers. Only a few days left of the first round. Gents, I appreciate you both. And imagine, this is only round 1. Yeah, we still got the semi-finals. We still got conference finals. And of course, you know we're shaping up for something big for the NBA finals. It's been a pleasure as always, guys. Yeah, salute to you both. And NBA fans, look, stay positive, energy's high. Bank holiday's over now. Let's get focused because we're going to close this season off right. We'll see you guys there.
Sky Sports. Feel it all.